In the darkness, humanity rises.
The Nexus Cantina operated on a simple principle: everything had a price, and everyone had a breaking point. Tonight, both axioms were about to be tested by someone who clearly hadn't read the fine print on either. Kethvar adjusted his probability matrices while watching the human female examine his establishment's crown jewel, the temporal combat assessment chamber. She moved with the kind of casual indifference that made his tertiary stomachs clench. Most species approached the TCAC with reverence, fear, or at least healthy curiosity. This one looked like she was pricing furniture. "Your reputation precedes you," he said, mandibles clicking in what passed for hospitality among his kind. "Though I confess, the stories seem contradictory." Stories usually are. The human, who'd introduced herself only as the Terran, traced a finger along the chamber's quantum-sealed viewport. Reality has poor narrative structure. Across the gambling floor, a cluster of Velthari diplomats whispered among themselves in their musical language. One of them, Ambassador Quinnell, approached with the fluid grace of her aquatic species. "Forgive our curiosity," she said, "but we've heard fascinating tales about your kind's combat methodologies. The hegemony files speak of impossible victories, improbable survival rates, and impossible reaction speeds," added Kethvar, "hence our interest in a demonstration." The Terran smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both pleasant and deeply unsettling. "What kind of demonstration?" "The TCAC runs combat scenarios in accelerated time streams," Kethvar explained. "We measure neural response, tactical adaptation, physical coordination. Most species achieve completion rates between 12 and 37% on our standard protocols." "Most species," rumbled a voice from the shadows. A Kragnath enforcer stepped forward, his exoskeleton scarred from countless battles. "But not all. I completed 42% on my best run." "Impressive," the Terran said without looking impressed. "What's the record?" 73%, Quinnell answered. "Set by a Mendari shock trooper 3 cycles ago. The scenario adapts continuously, you see. Perfect completion is theoretically impossible." The Terran nodded slowly. "And you want to test human reaction protocols against this?" "We're prepared to offer substantial compensation," Kethvar said. 5,000 credits for participation, regardless of performance. Our clients are quite curious about Terran capabilities." Around them, conversations had died. Other patrons, Zephyrian traders, collective observers, even a few unaffiliated mercenaries, gathered within eavesdropping distance. The Nexus had seen many species tested, but never a human. "I have a counter-proposal," the Terran said. Kethvar's mandibles twitched. "Oh. I'll take your test. But I want to place a wager on my own performance." The cantina's ambient noise dropped another octave. Betting on oneself was either supreme confidence or spectacular stupidity, and the galaxy's various species had strong opinions about which. "What manner of wager?" Quinnell asked. "I'll complete your impossible scenario before your recording equipment even starts capturing data." The silence stretched until someone, a Zephyrian pilot, burst into laughter. Others joined in, a cacophony of different species expressing the same sentiment. Ridiculous. Kethvar's probability matrices recalculated frantically. The recording systems initialize in 0.003 seconds. Temporal measurement begins simultaneously with scenario deployment. "I understand." The chamber seals require biometric confirmation and atmospheric adjustment. That alone takes 1.2 seconds. The Kragnath enforcer leaned closer. "You're claiming you can complete a scenario that takes most beings between 8 and 15 minutes, in under 2 seconds. I'm claiming I can complete it before you start timing me." More laughter rippled through the crowd, but some of the older patrons, veterans who'd survived the Rim Wars or the Collective's expansion, remained quiet. They'd learned to recognize the difference between bravado and certainty. The stakes? Kethvar asked. Your choice. Name something you think I can't afford to lose. Now that was interesting. Kethvar's business model relied on calculated risks, and this human was either offering him the deal of the century or preparing to demonstrate something that would fundamentally alter his understanding of combat psychology. Information, he said finally. Win or lose, you answer 3 questions about Terran military doctrine. And if I win? 50,000 credits and complete facility access for 24 hours. The Terran extended her hand, a human gesture that most species had learned to recognize as agreement finalization. Deal. As Kethvar clasped her hand, he noticed something curious. Her pulse was steady, her grip confident, and her body temperature hadn't fluctuated at all during their negotiation. Most species showed some physiological stress response when facing impossible odds. Either humans were remarkably good at hiding fear, or this particular human genuinely believed she could violate the basic physics of temporal measurement. Both possibilities, he realized, were equally disturbing. Shall we begin? The Terran asked. Immediately. Kethvar gestured toward the TCAC. Though I should mention, the scenario adjusts based on the subject's capabilities. It will escalate to match your performance level. Good, she replied. I'd hate for this to be boring. The TCAC's preparation bay buzzed with activity that bordered on reverence. Technicians from 4 different species crawled over quantum processors and temporal stabilizers, each convinced their particular expertise was essential to capturing whatever was about to happen. Chronometer array is calibrated to nanosecond precision, announced a spider-like arachnid engineer, her multiple arms dancing across holographic interfaces. Though I question the relevance of such accuracy for what amounts to theater. Quinnell's gill slits fluttered, her species equivalent of eye-rolling. The human seems convinced she can achieve temporal impossibility. Perhaps we should prepare for the unexpected. Or prepare for disappointment and easy profit, muttered a collective observer, his cybernetic implants whirring as they processed betting odds. Current wagers favor house victory at 97.4% probability. The Terran sat on a bench nearby, apparently meditating or sleeping. It was difficult to tell with humans. She declined the offered combat stimulants, tactical enhancement drugs, and even basic atmospheric optimization. Most species required at least minor chemical assistance to function in the TCAC's accelerated environment. Tell me something, said Vex, a scarred Mendari warrior who'd wandered over from the bar. Your species' military philosophy. I've studied the limited data available through diplomatic channels, but much remains classified or creative. Creative how? Battle reports that claim individual humans destroyed entire flotillas. Tactical assessments suggesting single operatives infiltrated fortress worlds. Victory ratios that violate basic statistical modeling. The Terran opened one eye. You think we exaggerate? I think someone does. Maybe we just define victory differently. A new voice joined the conversation, dry, academic, tinged with skepticism. Dr. Yethron, a crystalline researcher whose translucent body pulsed with analytical light, materialized from the crowd. Fascinating hypothesis, he said. Explain this alternative definition. Most species fight until they win or lose. We fight until the fight ends. Semantics, Vex scoffed. Perspective, the Terran corrected. When your enemy stops being capable of fighting, the engagement terminates. Whether they surrender, retreat, or achieve a different state of existence becomes irrelevant. The crystalline's body brightened, excitement, curiosity, or alarm. A different state of existence. Non-combatant status can be achieved through various methods. This prompted uncomfortable silence from several directions. The Mendari were renowned for their aggressive tactics, but even they operated within established parameters of warfare. The humans' casual phrasing suggested parameters that might be considerably more flexible. The chamber is nearly prepared, Kethvar announced, approaching with a complex device strapped to his arm. This will monitor your biometrics throughout the exercise. Standard procedure. The Terran examined the device. What exactly does it measure? Neural activity, cardiovascular stress, muscular tension, reaction cascades, everything necessary to understand your combat psychology. And this data goes where? Academic research, military analysis divisions, species compatibility assessments for joint operations. Kethvar paused. Why? Professional curiosity. Around them, the betting alcoves hummed with renewed activity. Word had spread through the station's various districts, drawing observers from species that rarely ventured into establishments like the Nexus. Academic researchers rubbed shoulders with military contractors. Diplomatic attachés stood beside mercenary recruiters. Everyone wanted to witness the first comprehensive analysis of human combat capabilities. I should warn you, Dr. Yethron said. The TCAC doesn't simply test physical responses. It evaluates tactical thinking, strategic adaptation, psychological resilience under extreme stress. The scenarios evolve based on your decision-making patterns. How evolved? The AI constructs increasingly complex situations until it identifies your breaking point. Most subjects reach cognitive overload within the first few challenges. And if someone doesn't break? Theoretical question. Every species has limitations. The Terran stood, stretching with a kind of casual movement that suggested complete muscular relaxation. Another physiological anomaly. Most beings showed increasing tension as combat scenarios approached. Final systems check complete, the arachnid engineer announced. All monitoring equipment operational. Temporal measurement arrays synchronized. Kethvar gestured toward the chamber entrance. The scenario will begin 30 seconds after seal confirmation. Recording commences simultaneously with environmental initialization. Understood. As the Terran approached the chamber, Ambassador Quinnell called out, "What should we expect to see?" The human paused at the threshold, considering the question with apparent seriousness. "Probably nothing," she said finally. Human combat doctrine prioritizes efficiency over spectacle. The chamber sealed with a soft hiss. Atmospheric processors engaged. Temporal accelerators spun up to operational frequency. In the observation deck, dozens of eyes, sensors, and analytical instruments focused on the testing chamber with anticipation that bordered on hunger. 3 seconds later, every single monitoring device simultaneously registered the same impossible reading. Target not found. The observation deck erupted into chaos that would have been comedic if it weren't so thoroughly terrifying. Malfunction, Dr. Yethron declared, his crystalline form pulsing rapidly through the spectrum. System failure. Equipment error. All systems green, the arachnid engineer snapped back, her limbs flying across diagnostic panels. Sensors operational. Subject simply, absent. Absent. Vex combat experience translated into immediate tactical assessment. From a sealed chamber. Physically impossible. So was her wager, Quinnell observed with growing unease. Yet here we are. Kethvar's mandibles clicked frantically as he cycled through security feeds. The TCAC showed empty space where the Terran should have been materializing holographic opponents. Environmental controls registered no life signs. Temporal measurements detected no chronological disturbances. Could she have disintegrated? Suggested a nervous collective observer. Some species undergo molecular dispersal under extreme stress. No residue, the engineer interrupted. No energy signatures. No quantum fluctuations. She didn't die. She didn't teleport. She simply isn't. The crowd pressed closer to the observation windows, hundreds of beings from dozens of species staring at an empty chamber that should have contained one human female engaged in mortal combat with adaptive AI constructs. Check the facility's other sections, Vex ordered, his military training overriding social protocols. Security breach. Emergency lockdown procedures. Already implemented, Kethvar replied. Automated systems triggered the moment we lost subject tracking. Every entrance sealed, every corridor monitored, every ventilation shaft scanned. A new voice joined the discussion. Calm, conversational, entirely too familiar. You might want to disable those lockdown protocols. Every head in the observation deck turned toward the source. The Terran stood behind the central monitoring station, examining readouts with professional interest. She wasn't breathing heavily. Her clothing showed no signs of physical exertion. Her heart rate, according to the biometric device still strapped to her arm, registered a steady 68 beats per minute. How? Dr. Yethron began. Wrong question. The Terran tapped a holographic display showing facility schematics. Better question. How long have you been ignoring your blind spots? Kethvar's probability matrices collapsed entirely. Blind spots. Maintenance corridors behind your monitoring equipment. Service tunnels connecting chamber systems. Emergency override panels accessible from ventilation networks. She gestured casually at the sophisticated sensor array. You built impressive detection networks. You forgot to detect your detection networks. The arachnid engineer's multiple eyes focused independently on different facility displays. Impossible. Those passages require molecular-level navigation. No being larger than insect class can. Can what? The Terran interrupted. Fit through spaces designed for automated repair drones? Disable security grids from maintenance interfaces? Access system backdoors through manufacturer debugging protocols. Uncomfortable silence spread through the observation deck as the implications crystallized. The human hadn't violated physics or achieved supernatural abilities. She'd done something far more disturbing. She'd treated their impregnable facility like a poorly designed obstacle course. You studied our schematics, Kethvar accused. I studied everything. Architectural plans, security protocols, personnel manifests, energy distribution networks, waste management systems. The Terran shrugged. Standard reconnaissance. Standard. Vex's voice carried dangerous undertones. For what? Site assessment. Threat evaluation. Asset identification. She nodded toward the crowd of observers. Intelligence gathering on 43 different species military representatives, diplomatic personnel, and research specialists. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Ambassador Quinnell's gill slits fluttered rapidly, her species' panic response. You're saying this entire demonstration was what you asked for? A test of human reaction protocols. The Terran smiled with that same pleasant, unsettling expression. You wanted to measure how quickly we respond to threats. I responded by eliminating the threat before it could manifest. What threat? Dr. Yethron demanded. A room full of potential adversaries studying human capabilities for unknown purposes. A facility designed to analyze combat psychology. Recording equipment broadcasting sensitive data to undisclosed recipients. She paused. Did you really expect us to simply perform for your entertainment? The silence stretched until Kethvar found his voice. The wager. You claimed you'd complete the scenario before recording began. I did complete it. Your scenario was a combat assessment chamber. The objective was surviving whatever emerged. I survived by ensuring nothing could emerge. The Terran gestured toward the empty TCAC. Mission accomplished. But the recording systems detected exactly what they were programmed to detect, a successful subject exit. She tapped the biometric device. According to your equipment, I completed the exercise in optimal condition with 0 stress indicators. That's not. You can't just redefine. Success parameters. Victory conditions. Acceptable tactical responses. The Terran's smile widened. I thought we established that humans define these things differently. Around the observation deck, beings who'd come to witness human limitations instead found themselves questioning their own assumptions about conflict, security, and the fundamental nature of combat itself. The only sound was the soft hum of monitoring equipment recording data that no one quite understood anymore. 20 minutes later, the Nexus Cantina had transformed from a gambling establishment into something resembling a diplomatic crisis center. Emergency communications buzzed between various homeworlds. Military attachés demanded explanations that didn't exist, and insurance adjusters calculated damages that couldn't be quantified. The Terran sat at the central bar, nursing a drink that Kethvar had provided with trembling appendages, while 50,000 credits transferred into an account whose routing numbers made several governments very nervous. "I've been thinking," announced Dr. Yethron, his crystalline form now cycling through worried purples and grays, "about temporal mechanics and causality loops." "Dangerous hobby," the Terran replied. "You didn't just circumvent our testing protocol. You retroactively invalidated the entire concept of reaction-based combat assessment." Ambassador Quinnell approached cautiously, her diplomatic training warring with survival instincts that suggested maintaining maximum distance. "My government will want explanations, assurances, treaties regarding human military expansion." "Your government," the Terran interrupted gently, "should probably focus on updating their defensive doctrines instead." "Are you threatening the hegemony?" "I'm suggesting that species who build their security around reaction-based defense systems might want to reconsider their priorities." Vex had been silently reviewing tactical manuals on his personal display for the past 15 minutes. Now he looked up with the expression of someone discovering that everything he'd believed about warfare was fundamentally inadequate. "The Mendari Code of Combat," he said slowly, "assumes engagement begins when opposing forces achieve mutual awareness. Our entire military philosophy revolves around superior reaction speeds and tactical adaptation." "Sounds limiting. What's the human equivalent?" The Terran considered this while examining the data chip she'd produced from somewhere within her clothing. "We don't really have codes of combat. We have operational objectives. Such as mission completion, asset protection, threat neutralization." She shrugged. "Everything else is just methodology." The arachnid engineer had been conspicuously absent from the post-demonstration discussions, but now she scuttled back into the main area with her multiple limbs carrying various scanning devices. "I've analyzed every millimeter of this facility," she announced. "Mapping human movement patterns, identifying entry and exit vectors, calculating temporal sequences." "And?" Kethvar asked. "According to my measurements, she accessed 17 different secured areas, bypassed 43 independent security systems, and performed comprehensive intelligence gathering on 86% of tonight's attendees." The engineer's mandibles clicked nervously. "Total elapsed time, 4 minutes, 12 seconds. "That's impossible," protested the collective observer. "Our cybernetic response networks operate at organic processing speeds," the Terran finished. "Yes, I noticed." Dr. Yethron's form brightened with sudden comprehension. "You're not faster than our technology. You're operating on completely different temporal assumptions." "Explain." "We measure reaction time from stimulus to response. You eliminate stimuli before they occur, making reaction time irrelevant." His crystalline structure pulsed with academic excitement. "It's not enhanced reflexes. It's predictive prevention." "It's thinking ahead," the Terran said simply. "But the computational requirements, analyzing probability matrices, predicting behavioral patterns, calculating optimal intervention points. Or just paying attention." This produced another of those silences that seemed to be becoming the evening's primary form of communication. Various species processed the implications while background conversations died throughout the cantina. Finally, Ambassador Quinnell voiced what everyone was thinking. "What did you really come here for?" The Terran placed the data chip on the bar where everyone could see it. Verification. Of what? Whether galactic military doctrine represents actual capability or just elaborate theater. She gestured around the room. Turns out it's mostly theater. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or despair. And the chip. Complete facility specs, security protocols, personnel records, and assessment data on every species present tonight. Standard intelligence package. For whom? Whoever might be interested in expanding their understanding of galactic defensive capabilities. The implications hit different species at different speeds, but eventually everyone arrived at the same terrifying conclusion. This hadn't been a gambling demonstration or a combat test. It had been a comprehensive military assessment conducted by someone whose government now possessed detailed intelligence on dozens of world's military representatives. How many others? Vex asked quietly. Others? How many humans like you are currently conducting similar assessments across the galaxy? The Terran finished her drink and stood. Wrong question again. What's the right question? She headed toward the exit, pausing at the threshold to look back at the assembled beings who'd spent the evening learning that their understanding of combat, security, and temporal mechanics needed significant revision. The right question, she said, is why you assume we needed to send anyone at all. The door sealed behind her, leaving the Nexus Cantina's patrons to contemplate the uncomfortable possibility that they'd been observed, analyzed, and catalogued by beings who moved through time differently than the rest of the galaxy, and who had probably finished gathering intelligence before anyone even realized the assessment had begun.